Welcome to this explainer. Okay, right off the bat, I want you to pay attention to that conversation happening in your own head right now. Maybe you were just talking to someone next to you, or maybe you're sitting alone, kind of replaying an old argument in your mind. Language feels like the most natural thing in the world, doesn't it? It feels like the ultimate tool for sharing information. But what if I told you that language actually didn't evolve so you could talk to other people? What if your ancestors developed the most complex communication system on Earth for an almost completely different reason?
So ask yourself, why do you talk to yourself? You might think language is just for talking to others, but the real answer is far stranger, and honestly, it will completely reframe how you understand your own mind. It changes everything about how you view human consciousness. I mean, we spend so much of our time talking to ourselves, right? Narrating our day, arguing with our own decisions. Well, why exactly do we do that?
The truth is a total paradigm shift. Language wasn't invented to talk. It was invented to think. Your ancestors didn't develop the most complex communication system on Earth just to chat. Language wasn't invented to broadcast your thoughts to others. It was invented to process, to organize the sheer chaos inside your own head.
Think about it. For hundreds of thousands of years, early humans actually lived and cooperated just fine with grunts and gestures, literally exactly like chimpanzees do today. They hunted, they gathered, they lived in these really complex social groups, and they communicated with simple expressions, just like every other primate on the planet. Bonobos do this right now. They coordinate, they cooperate, and they get by totally fine without conjugating verbs.
Look at the timeline of human communication evolution. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, we used grunts and gestures. Tens of thousands of years ago, we were doing complex hunting without words. And then, just in the last 100,000 years, there's this massive explosion of language. If language were just for sharing information, it really should have evolved much earlier, because our ancestors already had the capacity for complex thought. They had the same brains. So why wait? The obvious answer, that we just wanted to share information, doesn't fit the timeline at all.
Let's talk about the internal parliament of the brain. Look inward, and you'll realize your brain isn't one unified voice. It's a noisy, chaotic parliament of competing urges holding completely contradictory thoughts at the exact same time. Part of you is wanting to sleep, part of you is needing to finish work, part of you is worrying about the future, while another part is just feeling excited. For most animals, that internal parliament meets and reaches a decision through hardwired evolutionary programming. But your brain? Your brain is noisy and divided.
Neuroscientist Michael Gazzaniga spent decades studying this exact problem, and he discovered something absolutely fascinating. He said, the same neural networks that fire up when you speak are the exact same networks that light up when you're thinking alone, when no one is listening, when it's just you. Language, he realized, slows your mind down. It forces the chaos of all those competing signals into a linear, sequential order, one word after another, a beginning, a middle, and an end.
It developed so you could tell your brain what to do, and that structures everything. It's like this biological software update that allows you to actually override your impulses and reason through a problem. When you put a thought into words, you are telling your brain what to do. That structure is how you tell yourself no when your immediate instincts are screaming yes. It is, quite literally, how you reason.
We see terrifying proof of this in a condition called acquired mutism. This is a phenomenon where a specific brain injury causes a person to lose the ability to speak, which critically strips them of their ability to self-regulate and organize their thoughts. The most fascinating consequence isn't the silence itself, or that they can't talk to others. It's the almost total loss of behavioral control when that internal narrator disappears. They become highly impulsive, they struggle to resist urges, and they can no longer plan for the future.
Cognitive scientist Merlin Donald looked at this contrast to see how humans became unique. He found that a brain with internal speech acts as the driver. It's planned, it's controlled, and it overrides immediate desires. But a brain without internal speech, it becomes a passenger. It's impulsive, chaotic, and basically running on autopilot. When you lose the ability to talk to yourself, your consciousness becomes that passenger, leaving you completely vulnerable to whatever immediate desires pop up.
We actually see this ancient evolution happen in real time within children. Decades ago, psychologist Lev Vygotsky observed a phase he called inner speech, which is a developmental phase where young children stop narrating their actions out loud and transition the speech internally. A kid playing with blocks will think out loud. Now I put this here, wait, that doesn't work. They aren't performing for you, they're just thinking. Then, around age 3 or 4, a profound shift happens. That voice moves inside.
And that shift happens exactly when they develop self-control. The child stops narrating out loud and starts narrating internally, and that is exactly when impulse control begins. They resist the cookies on the counter only when they can internally narrate the rule to themselves. Language didn't develop so you could tell your friend about your feelings. It developed so you could govern your own mind.
But today, we face a modern threat, skipping the narrator altogether. We live in this highly frictionless environment that is actively training us to bypass this critical internal machinery entirely. The modern world is packed with ways to skip your internal monologue, with devices engineered to just totally erase the space between a desire and an action.
Think about when you see something you want to buy online. It triggers an immediate urge, and technology is meticulously designed to eliminate the pause where you would normally stop and argue with yourself. The Buy Now button absolutely does not want you to consult your internal parliament. It doesn't want you to put your competing desires into a linear sequence and reason through your budget.
You don't narrate a decision. You don't think through the consequences. You swipe. You just act. When you feel the sudden urge to check your phone, you don't think through it, right? Your hand just reaches into your pocket automatically.
The pathway from thought to action has become so instantaneous that you literally stop using the very tool your brain evolved to use. You've trained your mind to skip the narrator and go straight to the performance. You are bypassing the exact mechanism that your ancestors spent hundreds of thousands of years developing just to keep themselves in control.
This is exactly why you feel overwhelmed without it. And it's why reclaiming your original operating system through things like meditation, journaling, rehearsing difficult conversations, and yes, literally talking to yourself are so important. These aren't just modern wellness trends. They are vital ways of returning your mind to the way it was built to function. They force the pause. So, talking to yourself alone in your head, you aren't being weird. You're actually reclaiming your original operating system.
Because, I'll say it again, language wasn't invented to talk. It was invented to think. Every time you lie awake at night narrating your anxieties, or talking yourself into a difficult decision, or rehearsing a tough conversation before it even happens, you are exercising the exact power that separates humans from every other animal on Earth. The fact that we eventually figured out how to use it to talk to each other, that was honestly just a happy accident. Everything else came later.
You're experiencing the exact moment that made human consciousness possible. So the next time you hear that voice echoing in your head, realize you are just having a conversation with yourself. You are tapping into an evolutionary superpower. The only question left is, what are you going to use that profound moment of human consciousness to conquer today?